Believers, when there's a disturbance going on in the community, people want it to be shut down. Whether it's a fight, whether it's a raw, whether it's some other controversy, we or a scandal we want it shut down. We don't want to be bothered. We want to remain unconscious and left alone. That's the human condition. That's the condition of fallen mankind. Unfortunately, there are also believers operating this way, which is abominable. We should be renewed in our mind. That is why, whenever there's a disturbance going on, people don't want it to take too long. People want it to be shut down. If it takes too long, people get frustrated, people get annoyed, people begin to lose their minds. So they want things to be shut down as quick as possible. That's why the world loves to use violence to undermine its citizens so that they can shut down things easily. That's why society does not want you to have your leverage, your own leverage that it can't control. Now, this tendency to shut down disturbances as quick as possible because people don't want to be bothered, it's dumb. Let me tell you why it's dumb. Because that disturbance is a symptom of something else that's going on. But because people don't want to deal with the root of it, because they are involved and invested in the roots, they now want the fruit to be shut down as soon as possible. For example, let's say that there are gangs in a community, youth gangs. There are hundreds of young men joining gangs, and those gangs begin to fight one another. Now, people in that community want it to be shut down. They want those guys to either be put in jail or they need to reform to go to school, to go to their jobs, and to pay a mortgage. Just do like the rest of them. The question that should be asked is, why are they youth gangs to begin with? Where are the parents? Where are the families? Human beings are social creatures. We crave to belong somewhere. That's natural. So, if you have a lot of young men joining those gangs, that means they're looking for a substitute family. That means that the households in your community don't function well. And if the households don't function well, it means there's some sexual defectiveness somewhere that's not addressed. That's the root. But if you have to deal with this root, people say it becomes too personal. People say, well, that crosses the boundary into the private life. People come with all types of nonsensical excuses to not have to deal with the root. They don't want to face themselves, nor do they want to face the community and admit that there are defective things going on in the community. So when the fruit manifests, young men, sometimes even young women looking for a substitute family, which is natural, they find a substitute family in the wrong place. So many that join gangs don't join because they want violence, they want drugs, or they want prostitution or any of that. They join because they crave a substitute family. And those gang leaders take advantage of that by luring them into criminality and into all this other stuff. And it's often way later they realize, hold on a minute, I'm trapped in a criminal circle out here. And then when you want to get out, it becomes a bit difficult. So if the community would deal with its sexual defectiveness, which includes defectiveness in households, then there wouldn't be defective households to begin with, and without defective households, no young individual would ever look for a substitute family because the families in the community are working. And because the families are dealt with when things go wrong, those young people will feel validated and vindicated by the community, and that motivates them to invest more in the community. But if the community neglects them by tolerating their parents or their families to be negative, what do you think is going to happen? Those young people are going to feel abandoned by the community, and indeed they have been abandoned. So what do you expect someone that's being neglected, which is abuse, to do? To open up themselves to be killed? If someone is abused or neglected, do you expect them to just make themselves completely vulnerable so that the abusers can have their full way? No. Naturally, you're going to look for a substitute. You're going to look for somewhere where at least you're secured. And that's why gangs exist. And the violence that comes from gangs is the frustration that the gang members carry of being neglected by the community. And this often works out against other gang members. of other gangs. That's why you have gang conflicts. Those gang conflicts are an outlet for the pain and frustration of being neglected by the community. But people see the gang violence and they think, oh dear, they see the gang violence as an independent thing of the community, as if it's some virus that afflicts the community, even though it's a fruit of the dysfunction of the community. But people don't want to hear that it's the result of the dysfunctional community, because who are the community? They are. So that means that somewhere they are dysfunctional and they are defective. And that means that they are responsible for enabling this outcome. They want to put it all on the gang members or the gang leaders. They want to put it all on them. Put it all on what they consider criminals, so that they don't have to face themselves, so they are at ease. That's what society wants. And that's why you have law enforcement. That's why you have youth prisons. That's why you have all those institutions, just that so that commoners don't have to face themselves. That's what it comes down to. Worldlings don't want solutions. A few of them do. Very rarely will you find exceptions in the world of worldlings that really want solutions. In general, what they call solutions are just ways to shut down a symptom so that they don't have to bother with it. They don't want to be bothered by anything. They don't even want to be bothered by reality. Because reality implies that as a community, you ought to be active and involved with your members to know what's going on and to resolve things. But worldlings don't want any reality whatsoever. They just want this relief of being left alone while everything works out well without their involvement. So they want everything to work out well, they don't want any obligations, but they want the community to have obligations towards them. You see how far this goes, and such people join together in a thing called society, and they tell neglected people that they neglect, the world doesn't owe you anything. They blame the victims because they don't want to face that they are perpetrators and victimizers. Now, as a believer, we ought to see through such stuff immediately. I see believers going into debates. I see believers going into discussions and fights about societal topics. And they are on the level of fighting symptoms. And I'm thinking, hold on a minute, if I see worldlings on the level of fighting symptoms and they go into fights and debates and things get heated, okay, that's to expect that. Those are worldlings. They're so obsessed with control, that's why they're all about managing or suppressing symptoms. But I do not expect, nor should I have to expect, to see a believer active in that foolishness. Yes, it is foolishness, because no matter how much you suppress a symptom, that does not change the root. Okay? You can have an apple tree out there. Every time apples grow, you cut it down. You cut it. So nobody sees the apples. No matter how many times you remove the apples, it remains an apple tree from the root. It is an apple tree. The DNA of that tree is an apple tree. It will always produce apples eventually. It will never produce grapes, nor oranges, nor grapefruits. It will always produce apples. So, when it comes to daily life, worldlings just want quick fixes. And I see believers debating and fighting and defending quick fixes. Stop this foolishness. We should not be involved in this foolishness of the world. There are even worldlings that see is foolish because eventually no long-term solution comes out of it. As believers, we shouldn't be involved in those time-consuming, time-wasting activities. The world gets relief out of those time-consuming, time-wasting activities. That's why they finance them and it promotes them. And that's why when you have those debates on television, political debates, sociological debates, people look with attention. Why? Because they hear things they want to hear. Namely, that it's all out there and it's not them as a community. We as believers, we should consider other people and how other people feel. But while we have empathy, that we consider other people's feelings, we all should be firm and clear when something needs to be said. If the issue is the community itself, we must make plain, okay, this is us. We are the ones doing this. The thing that we call society, that's something we enact. So if society is to blame and we're the one enacting society, it means that we are to blame. Cut this crap out saying it's society, throwing it on some abstract out there. Society is something we invest in, that we enact. So it's our act collectively that is society. So if it's our act collectively that's society, it means that we're the ones to blame because we are the actors that bring this thing society into existence on a daily basis. So if society is to blame, then it's us, and we must take our collective responsibility. Period. But here's the thing: if you find a politician out there that talks like that, people will say boo. People will throw rotten tomatoes at him. People would even come to lynch him. So if you find a politician out there who says things as clear as day like that, he would never be elected. You know why? Because if he is elected, that means that the people have chosen for a real solution. And that means now people have to go through with the solution, make the sacrifices needed, change themselves internally, fix themselves, go into therapy, whether it's group therapy or individual therapy if needed. That means really doing the work as a group and as individuals. And worldlings don't want this because they would have to face too much. So worldlings would never, if it depends on them, vote in someone that will tell them the real truth as it is. They will not. They will vote in someone that tells the truth about other groups. So let's say you have a country with with a Chinese majority, and there in that country you have a Filipino minority, and in the Filipino minority there are many bad stuff going on. Let's say you have a Chinese candidate that begins to talk about the bad stuff in the Filipino community, and he gives a straight up analysis, factual about what's going on. Now the majority of the Chinese majority will rejoice in that candidate because he's telling facts about that other group, which suggests that it's the other group that's a problem. The things he's saying is true, but he does not mention that those things happen in this country with a Chinese majority. So he doesn't say, okay, but those Filipinos may have many broken households, many things that they're not dealing with, but hold on a minute, where do those Filipino people live? Oh, here, in this country with a Chinese majority. So, somewhere we as a Chinese majority enable this fact in that group. And then the population will have to face themselves, and they don't want to hear this. So if the politician comes out and he mentions straight facts, he's so-called keeping it real, but he's keeping it real in an external way, people will rejoice. But he's not keeping it real about the whole group. If he would do that, he would never be empowered by the people. And the Apollonians, they know this about the world's population, that the world's population just wants someone to relieve them. That's why worldlings fall for political scams over and over again. Because deep down inside, they want to be scammed. Deep down inside, they don't want someone to point out the facts to them. Deep down inside, they want the exploitation to continue as long as they don't have to put up with the consequences of the exploitation. It's the same as a cocaine addict that's completely fine with sniffing cocaine, but it's not fine with the health issues nor the financial ruin that comes as a result of his cocaine addiction. So now he wants to blame someone else, or he wants to use other people to compensate the consequences of his cocaine addiction instead of facing, hold on a minute, I'm so attached to this high, this relief I get from this cocaine, it needs to stop. I need to learn to face things instead of reaching out to cocaine. Instead of facing himself, he just doesn't want to do that. He just wants to, he just wants others to comply in his ease without him being challenged. So he'll begin to manipulate and even blackmail others into doing this. That's how it is with worldlings collectively. They want quote-unquote leaders that they can blackmail and let them off the hook. That's what they want. So just because you have a public speaker that mentions raw facts doesn't mean that that speaker is in the truth. You have bitter people that spit out raw facts just because they're bitter, they want to act out pain. And because what they're saying is true, and other bitter people are glad someone is pointing it out, he may get a following, or she may get a following, but they're not in the truth. They are in darkness. They just want to dump. People can dump facts just because they want to act out pain against another group, whether it's blacks or Latinos or whites, wherever. That can happen. But just because someone is dumping facts, they're dumping facts. They're not revealing facts. Just because they're dumping facts does not mean that they are in the truth, no matter how factual they are. So also know the difference between someone who's really revealing truth and someone who's dumping facts. Too often we confuse dumping facts with someone telling the truth. No, when someone dumps facts, they're just revealing things that they're upset about. And they're showing their anger about something. But just because someone is showing facts that they're upset about and revealing their anger towards it, that does not mean that they intend to look for a solution. Often they don't. Often they don't. So, believers, do not get involved in these time-wasting, time-consuming rituals of the world. Because that's what they are. They're time-consuming, it drains you, and it's time-wasting because nothing productive, constructive comes out of it eventually. That's why every 4 years you have another presidential election where there are more debates about what needs to be done, but eventually nothing long-term is done to deal with it. Or a policy is enforced, but that policy has side effects. So now, the next 4 years, when another president comes, now you need to counter those effects again. That's the cycle. That's how it goes on and on and on. And the reason worldlings keep falling for it is because they're short-sighted. The only thing that matters to the worldling is what refers to himself or to herself. And because of that, they have a short-term vision. They don't look at the bigger picture. They don't see things in their entirety. That's why over and over again, they're trapped. So believers, redeem the time by acting wise. Be at peace.